I'm on page 24 here, for those of you who are following, and I'm gonna keep plowing through this thing. Characteristics of profitable markets. I worked in the audio industry for years in various different ways. Starting when I was about 12 or 13, my first entrepreneurial venture was building a pair of speakers in shop class, advertising them in the classified in the newspaper, and selling them to a guy for $60 when I was 14 years old. That's the first thing I ever did, and I didn't really do that because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I did it because that was the only way I could do my stereo equipment fetish and fund it. Okay, it's like, well, you know, if I was going to use the drugs, I had to sell them. So, so that's how I got into building speakers, and that became an intense interest for really the next 10 years, and then I kind of went into other kinds of business. But I'm intimately familiar with the audio industry, actually multiple aspects of it, and there is a certain segment of the audio industry which they call the high end, and it's the top of the skew curve, okay? And it's a really interesting market because what most people don't know is that except for speakers, for the most part, all audio equipment is essentially the same, okay? The high-end audio industry exists for the purpose of maintaining the illusion that it's all different, okay? Now, I'm sure I'm shattering somebody's or severely offending somebody, which I guess that's what we're here to do. But there's all kinds of superstition that goes on in the audio industry, and it's because people are in this quest for the ultimate listening experience. It's like there's this nirvana. It's like if the concert hall could be perfectly reproduced in my living room, it would be like the most orgasmic experience. Now, being at the concert hall doesn't make them feel that way, and most of them don't really even go, okay? Or they don't live anywhere near where there is one. But it's like this imaginary ideal. And so, like, now when CDs first came out, there was this outrage. Now, there was this outrage that, like, CDs were expected to be like perfection. When you went from LP to CD, that, you know, everything's going to be perfected now. Well, the CD was definitely different. But a whole bunch of people also realized, hey, wait a minute. All these turntables made in England are going to get replaced by CD players made in Japan. Wait a minute. This is not good. This is very bad. And so there was this backlash against CDs, that CDs don't sound as good, the LPs sound better. Now, most people don't know that, like, a really good system playing records sounds really good. And maybe even to your ear, it might sound better than a CD, possibly. But I remember when the CDs first came out, you know, all these people are complaining about the CDs have all this glare, and the sound is clinical, and it has this etchy sound to it, and we don't like it. And the albums are better. And I remember somehow this thing got started. Well, if you smear bull semen on the CD before you play it, it takes the edge off the sound, and it sounds much nicer, okay? Now, we were having this conversation at lunch with Mickey Kennedy, and Mickey Kennedy's wife insists that the best kind of Coke that you can possibly have is Coke in a $2 cup from McDonald's. And it tastes better than it does in a can, tastes better than it does in a bottle. Mickey, will you go pick up a cup of Coke for me at McDonald's while you're, you know, on your way home from the gym? And Mickey's like, why would I spend $2? Now, Mickey's a guy that owns 15 150,000 domain names and like makes more money than most of us put together. He's like, why would I spend $2 on a cup of Coke when I could buy 12.5 cents? I could buy a can. And so Mickey decided to put this to the test. Go ahead, Denise. You want to? Now, is this a great personal assistant or what? She'll actually crawl on our knees through the aisle to preserve the quality of the video. I mean, this is good. This was not in the hiring test, but it could have been. Okay, crawl on your knees on an aisle of an airplane from the back to the front, passing papers to everybody. And what?
This looks more like a church with a tabernacle.
Oh, a church. Yes, this is a church, and she's an altar girl. Maybe this is a bus, and the wheels on the bus go round and round. The wheels on the bus go round and round. So Mickey gets a can of Coke, and he pours it into the McDonald's cup and some ice from the refrigerator, and gives it to his wife, and he goes, I swear that it's just as good from the can. And she takes a sip. She goes, oh no, this is so good. Are you sure? Oh yeah, this is so good. Yeah, you sure? Oh yeah. He comes back an hour later. You still? Oh yeah. He's like, well, if you go to the recycle bin, there's a can, and that was from a can that was not from McDonald's, and now he's divorced. Well, not really. Okay, now, the senses are very easily tricked, okay? Now, the ears are very susceptible to suggestion. Remember what I said about how people crave to be in agreement, okay? Now, so here's the sort of thing that goes on, okay? You're in a high-end audio store, and you're listening to the $6,000 speakers and the $2,500 preamp and the $3,000 power amp and the $1,000 cables, and they're playing, some aria from some opera, and the guy says, now, I am going to put a little bit of bull semen on the CD, and I'll be back in just a moment. And then he comes back, and he puts it in, and he presses play again. He says, now, do you notice when Mahler's Fifth Symphony comes in full blast, that the French horns have this much rounder feeling, and this almost a bloom? And he's like, yes, as a matter of fact, I do hear that round bloom sound from the French horns. Okay, now, it's total bullshit, okay? And you heard it from me straight, but it's a good market because they're superstitious about this stuff. Same thing with speaker cables. Now, you can spend $2,000 on a pair of speaker cables, okay? Now, it's very, very, very fancy copper wire. Well, it might have silver in it or something, or it might be gold-tipped or something, but it's wire, okay? And they've done all kinds of, blind listening tests, sort of like Mickey's, Coke thing, where, it's one, it's the other, and people don't know, and they have to push the button and prove that they can tell, and they can't prove they can tell, and they're right half the time, and they're wrong half the time, and there is no difference. But if they want to believe there's a difference, there's a difference. And, profitable markets tend to be like that. There's some wonderful examples. Golfers. John mentioned golfers yesterday. Golfers are rabid customers, okay? People are like, I don't know what it is, there's something about golf that pushes this irrational button inside of certain people where they can't stop obsessing about the white ball, and they'll spend all kinds of money just chasing that thing all over the place. That is a good market. Martial arts guys, okay, they're all crackheads. Now, what is it? I don't know. It's like some insecurity or something, but the highest opt-in rate of any opt-in page that I've ever seen was this page where it shows you this guy doing a triangle move for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. and it's like 8 minutes of video, and it'll show like 30 seconds. It'll show this 160-pound guy getting a 220-pound guy in a triangle move, and the 220-pound guy taps out, and then it rolls to the next frame, and now you're in a new gym, and there's a new 220-pound guy and the same old 160-pound guy, and he gets the guy in a triangle move and taps out, and it happens again and again and again, and it's visual, and then there's this announcer going, look at this 160-pound, C-class guy tapping out all these world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu masters. How does he do it? Enter your name and your email address into this box, and you will be rushed via email these vital secrets for your triangle moves so you can cream your competition at the next meet. And 80% opt-in rate. 80%. Wow. That's amazing. I always like to pick on dentists and chiropractors. One of the characteristics of profitable markets is the customers have a chip on their shoulder. Now I'm very serious about this. They are insecure about something. They're mad at the world about something. Now, does anybody know what dentists and chiropractors are mad at the world about? They're not real doctors. And it bugs them. It absolutely... Are you a chiropractor? Oh, okay. You laughed as though you might be...
I have a coaching client who's
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay, and so now they finished their schooling. Okay, they ain't gonna go to medical school and do all that. Okay, so it says doctor by their name, but they're not an MD doctor, and so they spend the rest of their lives trying to compensate. Okay, and so the typical dentist is like 48 years old, divorced, owns 2 apartment complexes, goes to the gym, works out, has a sports car, is extra buff, and trying to make and has the mistress that makes him feel less insecure than he really is. Okay, that's typical dentist. She's like,
My dentist.
that's my dentist. Okay, now dentists are great people to market to, for business opportunities and all kinds of stuff, because they hate sticking their hands in people's mouths all day long. They're like, I signed up for this, I went out of this. And so if you look at any dentist's mail, there's a pitch twice a week about some way to not have your hands in people's mouths for the rest of your life and to secure your retirement and do something that you really want to do. Okay? And it's just like golfers. It's like this endless market. Chiropractors, same kind of thing, except they're maybe a notch lower status in society than the dentists are. And they have the additional chip on their shoulder that the world does not accept alternative medicine. Okay? And that really roils them, because the insurance companies won't pay all the fees and all this kind of stuff. Ugh. Okay? And so they're looking for stuff. Okay? Now, one of the things that's really great to sell or use as a selling tool is some kind of a devil, some kind of an evil person that you can sell against. Okay? Now, Brian's talking about the China-Tibet thing, all China has to do is make the Tibet people into devils, and now they get more people on their side, and now people march for China. Okay? It's a very important part of the strategy. Now, one of my favorite devil things is a long time ago, I bought these old newsletters from a guy named Jeff Paul, and his newsletters were for financial planners. And it was a marketing system for financial planners who are trying to get more clients, and they don't want to just make cold calls and make a list of 3,000 of their closest friends. And so there's all these other ways to get financial planning business. And so Jeff writes this newsletter. Now in this newsletter, Jeff would be writing and he'd be talking about something, and then right in the middle of a text it would say, knock, knock, knock. Hey, somebody's at the door. Who's that? Just a minute, I'm going to go answer the door. And, and he's writing this in his newsletter. And it says, oh, it's Mr. Professional. Hi, Mr. Professional. How are you? Oh, I'm mad today. And Mr. Professional was this guy who believes all the stuff the insurance company training people tell him. Okay? So, if he works for Northwestern Mutual, he goes to Northwestern Mutual Training School, and he believes everything that they tell him to do. Oh, well, see, what you need to do is you need to offer people this free road atlas. And if you offer them the free road atlas, they will want to sit down with you and get financially naked with you and tell you everything about their past, present, and future, and then give you all their money. And Mr. Professional would come in and he would be all upset because none of this stuff is working. But Mr. Professional is too proud to listen to Jeff. And so Mr. Professional just argues with Jeff all the time. And that's what he does. So Mr. Professional comes in. He knocks on the door. He grumbles about his stuff. Jeff tells him what's wrong. Mr. Professional says, no, you're so stupid, Jeff. I'm frustrated. I'm going to go have a beer. And he leaves and the door slams. And then Jeff continues with his newsletter. Okay? And then now Mr. Professional, his number one excuse for why he won't try Jeff's stuff is because there's a compliance department. Now, compliance department in an insurance company is the people that regulate what kind of advertising and marketing that the agents use, okay? Now, in order to get people to buy his stuff, Jeff has to overcome people's tendency to believe the compliance department, who's going to tell them just like blanket statement, you can't use anything that we have not approved. And meanwhile, Jeff is selling materials that they can use that don't have any company's name on it, that doesn't incur any liability towards any insurance companies, and Jeff wants them to use the material. So Jeff turns the compliance department into a devil. Okay? And the compliance department is the enemy. And he'll go on these big, long rants about how these guys who work in these ivory towers in New York City and ride the subway in Manhattan and go to their cushy office and sit next to their plastic plants, they sit there and they make your life totally, completely miserable, and they grind you into dust, and they do not care because it's your slave labor, it's your blood, it's your sweat that's paying their salary, not theirs. And if you get eliminated, another one will arrive in your place, and they do not care, and all their job is to say no, 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 no. And the reason you are miserable is because of them, okay? And man, is that believable. It's like, ugh. And I mean, I was never a financial planner, and I would read Jeff's newsletter, and I would get angry at these people. It's like, wow. I think I'm going to become a financial planner so I can be angry at compliance people, as though I didn't have enough people to be angry about already. It's really powerful to have a devil because you can sell against a devil, okay? Now, something about hyper-responsive customers that y'all need to know is we already said their capacity to buy exceeds your capacity to supply, okay? Now, let's take an example of this. Let's take Grateful Dead fans. Grateful Dead fans are legendary for their hyper-responsiveness, are they not? Okay, I mean, they would climb over police barriers, and they would camp out for days, and they would follow the Grateful Dead all over the country. I mean, I knew this guy that was into the Grateful Dead, and he must have had 500 different versions of that train song, the Casey train, driving cocaine, whatever, right? He's got 500, because at Dead concerts, they would allow people to record the concerts and then trade the recordings with each other, okay? And so true, top 0.0001% dead fans have a collection of like every song. And they go, you know that guitar solo that Jerry Garcia played in Anaheim, California on November 14, 1983? I mean, there is a lick on there that I have never heard anywhere else. Now, it's probably a mistake, okay? It doesn't matter, okay? Now, the bootleg theory of hyper-responsive customers is you can dig deep into the muck of whatever you've got, and they'll consume it, okay? I know of like rock bands where they have like a $10 a month membership, and they'll send you like copies of their demo tapes from 10 years ago for the famous song that now got famous and got recorded properly, and you can like hear what it sounded like in Neil's apartment, okay, you know, with a little 4-tracks recorder or something like that, okay, and the fans will buy that. They're like, wow, it's interesting how that song changed, you know, from the demo version to the improved demo version to the radio version to the album version to the November 1983 version in Anaheim Stadium, okay? Because they can't get enough. I mean, that's the nature of addicts. And just this slight little twist, okay? So what that means is the threshold of quality becomes lower for the hyper-responsive customer, not higher, okay? Let's talk about like ordinary statistics like USA Today. If USA Today says the approval rating of the president is 23%, then what that means is, I'm going to draw something I've never drawn for you before, but, you know, here's the people that like the president, and here's the people who don't care, and let's draw the people who don't like the president this way, okay? Actually, let's see. This might be, what this is saying is 23% are on the positive side, okay? And like, here is negative, all right? That's what this really means. So there's very few people who like few people who matter, who like slightly approve of the president or slightly disapprove of the president. The people who really matter are how many of these people and how many of these people, and then if those are in balance, what matters is people that are closer and closer and closer in the middle. So again, the people that sway the election are the people that are here and not the ones in the middle. Now, there's all kinds of statistics that you could read. You could read. Now, Mickey was talking in lunch about his press release business, and he was taking the skew curve and he was mapping the different price points, and he was going, well, okay, we sell a press release service for, I don't know what the number is, like $1,000 or something like that. Okay, what's a $10,000 thing? Now, one thing that I want to point out about Mark's presentation, where he went from selling oil changes to selling, in none of those cases was he actually just selling printing. Mark was selling results, not procedures. Is like car dealers don't want paper and ink. They want to sell cars. Mark says, I'm going to help you sell cars. I'm even going to staff the tents. Okay, Mark went to selling cars. Now, the minute Mark is in the business of selling cars, he is now actually, without the car dealers even realizing it, he's almost become more of a car dealer than they are. Now all they are is a bank and a warehouse. Mark collects the money. Okay? Now, let's equate this to Google. If a person wants something, and Google is the place where they decide to get it, like if they're going to click on the first plumbing ad they see and call the first plumber they can call, what will happen? And if the Google is really the one selling the plumber, not the plumber, Google will end up making all the money in plumbing. Okay? Because they're selling the result. And the plumber is selling the procedure. Do you see the shift that Mark made in selling an end result? Mark said, hey, I want to go all the way to this line over here. What is the ideal thing that we're actually trying to sell? And this is sell a car. Any marketing business gets transformed when you make that shift. Okay. I do not believe that you can violate 80-20. You can only pay a penalty for it. Communism was on one side, it's a attempt to make people believe that the 80-20 rule can be violated, that everybody could be the same. And it's obviously failed, okay? But of course, the other side of the game is the people who are running communism knew all along that they were not violating the 80-20 rule. They're just getting to secretly benefit from it, right? So all the, it's like Animal Farm book, all the animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, okay? Now, you have to be on guard for this because politicians take advantage of this all the time. Because here's what's going on in an election, okay? Here's what's going on when people say, we need a change, okay? Tocqueville, I mentioned Tocqueville this morning. Tocqueville basically said, the democratic system in the United States will work just fine until the politicians figure out that they can bribe the people with their own money. Okay? Now, the way the political system in the United States works is we use these people's money to make, this is a very small percentage, we use these people's money to make promises to these people or even these people. Okay? And since there's a whole bunch more of these people than these people, we get to take these people's money and give them to these people. Okay? Vote for me. I will take their money and give it to you. That's what's going on. Don't make any, don't have any delusions about it. And most of the time, when politicians use statistics, they're doing some version of this. How many of you read a link that I sent out last week, middle of last week sometime, by Malcolm Gladwell, and it was about dealing with the homeless problem? Anybody see that? Wait, none of you saw that. Wow, I've got a screwed up email system or something. Or maybe I just imagined that I did it and I didn't. This is a brilliant article by Malcolm Gladwell, and he there was this student who was homeless for a short period of time, and he was doing some kind of social work research or something like that, and he said, hey, I'm going to do a study on homeless people. And what he found was that most people are in a homeless shelter for only a few days. And they sort of hit bottom, and they run out of money, and they have nowhere to go, and they're so desperate to get it, they will find a way to get out of that place and get somewhere else. And so most people who are in a homeless, they're in and they're out and they're back kind of into the mainstream of life, okay? And then there are people who are somewhat chronic, but sort of stable. And then there's this small percentage of homeless people who have severe problems, like really severe problems. Like the police find the guy drunk in the park every week. They find him passed out in the park every week, okay? And they have to take him to the emergency room and like do something to his liver or something to keep him alive. And then he goes back out on the street and he drinks again, and it just keeps going. And they figured out that there was this tiny percentage of homeless people who cost, like, if a homeless guy goes to the hospital and he's like about to die, then he's got a bleeding neck and they're going to treat him, and it costs thousands of dollars to treat him, and who pays for it? Well, the homeless guy sure don't pay for it, no. The taxpayers do, or the hospital has, you know, like, it has to get absorbed somewhere. And they figured out that, like, the worst 20 homeless people in Reno City, Nevada, each cost the system $150,000 a year in emergency room bills. Okay? And the guy says, you know what? It would cost a whole lot less money to just rent these guys an apartment. Like, and it's true. It's absolutely true. You could rent the guy an apartment for, you know, $1,000 a month or something like that. You could feed him, you know, for $25,000 a year, let's say. You could feed the homeless guy and just like babysit him. Okay, and then somebody's going to say, yeah, but he doesn't deserve an apartment. The single mom does, because she's working 2 jobs. Now, that's true too, isn't it? But you get into these, you know, kind of conundrums. Now, Gladwell's argument is you should deal, you know, if you've got, you know, the skew curve of problem homeless people, you've got this tiny percentage here. You know, you got the 20 worst guys in Reno, Nevada. He says, if you just want to save money and you just want to solve the problems as fast as you can, you don't sit around and debate about how fair it is. You just solve the problem. Because 80-20 isn't fair, and all the arguing and debating ain't going to make it fair. Okay? The fair thing to do would be let the homeless guy die in the park. But compassion kind of dictates a certain amount of compassion. Okay? I know, it's redundant. Solid. I totally justify compassion. And so it's like, well, you know, people can write letters and they can complain about how, well, you know, the single mom really deserves the apartment more than the wino. But you know what? If we're not going to let the winos die, then let's find the most economical way to deal with the winos, and let's just do it, and let's just bite the bullet. Okay? Now, when you think in an 80-20 fashion, you're always going to run into little conundrums like that. It's the same conundrum whether you're the bottom of the pile or the top of the pile. Okay? There was a very interesting article, and maybe Brian could even help me with this. And it was comparing Mother Teresa and Bill Gates and somebody else. Where is Brian? Who's the third person?
Michael Milken. Michael Milken. The name I didn't know.
Michael Milliken?
Milken.
Milken? Isn't he the 1980s junk bond guy? And it was this really interesting, you know, if somebody wants to jump in and can do a better job than I can, but it's like, You know, Mother Teresa is obviously revered as, you know.
Dish it out for you in 3 minutes.
Okay, well, maybe you do that. But, you know, there's this, you know, conception about Mother Teresa, right? Now, Bill Gates is no Mother Teresa. Like, does everybody kind of agree? But the article sort of made the case, well, how do you know he's not? It said, okay, Bill Gates is like a ruthless capitalist, and he's out there doing all this stuff, and there's a lot of people that hate him, and he stomped Netscape into the ground, and he stomped these guys into the ground, and whatever. They go, but you know what? How many hundreds of millions of dollars has he contributed to malaria research? Okay, now like that gets to the root of a very severe problem. Now let's talk. Here's an 80-20 thing. Let's talk about malaria versus AIDS. Okay, malaria they're both two essentially uncurable diseases at this point in time. Okay, now AIDS is an incurable disease that happens in poor countries and rich countries. Malaria is a disease that only happens in poor countries. Most people who have malaria make $2 a day, okay? And malaria is like really bad. It's a really bad disease, okay? There's like millions and millions and millions of dollars of AIDS research. There's almost no malaria research. Why? Because people in affluent countries aren't interested in malaria. Well, Bill Gates has funded a ton of money to fix malaria. Matter of fact, not too long after I was in Mozambique, Bill Gates was in Mozambique, and I was impressed because just going to Mozambique puts you at risk of getting malaria. Okay? Now, I took the pills that are supposed to fight it off and everything like that. But you know, if I was truly all about money, I would want to make sure I never ever got malaria for any reason, and I would never even go there. So it's like I was impressed. Bill and Melinda Gates went to Mozambique, and they risked getting malaria because they're fighting malaria. And it's interesting to stop and think, how many industries and companies exist under the umbrella of Microsoft Windows? Okay, how many software programs are there where, you know, people have jobs and they sell software and they write software and they work at a software company, and it only exists because Microsoft Windows is there in the first place and it's a common platform, okay? You know, maybe Bill Gates has done the world an enormous amount of good. Maybe Bill Gates has done more good than Mother Teresa. And that's kind of the argument that the article makes, okay? So it's like, if you pursue the highest productivity and the most output and the most success, yes, you will be criticized. But you will also be in a position to do things that most other people can't do. And it's usually the jealousy that drives the criticism, okay? And I think one of the things that you kind of have to get used to as you succeed is there is going to be a certain amount of jealousy. I was talking to Bill last night. He's like, hey, you know what? If you go out and you become really successful and you make $1 million a year, you know what? Most of your friends aren't actually going to be happy for you. They're not? Yes, sir.
So, you can't trust the people that try to latch on when you're wealthy, but you've also lost all the people that were with you up to that point because you're pissed off.
Well, you won't lose your real friends. You won't lose your real friends. And, you know, I remember when I was probably 16 years old, I had this friend named Scott, and we were in some class together, and they were talking about all the things, like the lists of things that everybody's supposed to know, you know, like a newspaper article. It's like, well, you know, most educators agree that most students should know what the Gettysburg Address is. And most students should know, you know, what happened in 1776 or, you know, something like that. And my friend Scott, he like made this list of other things he thinks most people are supposed to know. And one of them was who your friends really are. Now, it's kind of unfortunate to find out a little late who your friends really are. But I always loved the story, and this is a true story. There was a guy in Cleveland who won the lottery. He was like, I've got a winning lottery ticket. This, like, the numbers match up. I'm the winner. And he's like, man, I'm going to get pummeled tomorrow. So what he did was he called up like 20 of his closest friends, say, Fred, this is Joe. I need to borrow $1,000 as fast as you can loan me the $1,000. I promise to pay it back by next week. I can't tell you why. You just have to trust me. Can I please borrow $1,000? I'd come and pick up the check tonight, but I need to borrow $1,000. Of course, most of them didn't return his phone call. And then the next day, he's the lottery winner. Who are his friends? He found out. Now, he saved himself them calling him now and wanting to borrow $1,000 from him, right? So this is a good deal. True story. Okay, here's a statistic. The average American reads one book a year. Right? It's true. Well, but it's not really quite true. Because you got to put the skew curve on that deal. Okay? Let's apply the skew curve to that statistic. The truth is, let's do a simple one. The average American, the above average American. The average American reads 0 books a year, and the above average American reads 5 books a year. And all the books are bought by 20% of the people. Okay? And then we can add a little more nuance to it, where it actually looks like this, where, 1% of the people read 50% of the books. It's true. Okay? So, if you're selling books, you're not selling to the 100%, you're selling to the 5% or the 20%. That's who you're selling to, okay? Once again, does the average American read one book a year? How is that actually a useful statistic? It's almost useless as a statistic. Now, I would submit to you, I don't really have a proof of this, but I would submit to you that all of the factors of success in our society correlate to reading more than any other single statistic you could probably measure. Readers are leaders. Let me show you another application of the skew curve. Let's turn it upside down. And I'm going to show you something. We're going to turn this thing upside down. And I'm going to say this is cost. And this is market share. 0%, 1%, 5%, 20%, 50%, 100%. If you want to get 0.01% of your market, probably all you have to do is hang out a shingle somewhere and somebody will find you and buy something from you. Okay? Your ad shows up somewhere on Google or your link, or you're on the internet and there's somebody out there trolling around and they're going to find you and buy something from you. And like getting, 1/10 of 1% market share is easy. Now, every bit more market share that you want costs you more and more and more money per customer. So like the first 10 customers are really easy and they're almost free. Maybe you get them with some free publicity or something. But then the next 10 customers are more expensive and the next 10 customers are more expensive. And, you know, after a while, you're paying tens of dollars per customer acquisition. And then you're paying hundreds of dollars per customer acquisition. And as you know, getting from 5% to 10% market share is an uphill climb. Getting from 10% to 15%, even more of an uphill climb, because you're fighting more and more competitors off of you, okay? But then something interesting happens. You get past about 30 or 40% market share, you're a major player. Now, can you think of industries where 60, 70, 80, 90% market share has been achieved? And, like, how about MP3 players? Is there a maker of MP3 players that's got like 70, 80% market share? Okay. How about operating systems? Is there an operating system? This shows you, once you get past, you know, here, it gets easier. So it's going, you know, it's going from 1 to 30% is where all the battle is. And then after a while, you're so big and you're so powerful, you can beat your competitors into submission, or you can acquire them. And this is why acquisitions happen when industries mature. This is why there's consolidation. It's the natural place for things to go once somebody has got more than 30 or 40% market share. Now they just eat up their competition, okay? And then it starts all over again when somebody says, hey, I just want to go get 1/10 of 1% of this little tiny market. And then they start in and it all starts over again.
Is that affected by mission, though? I mean, in other words, if you're trying for a smaller and smaller niche of a market, is that...
Well, 100% of what? 100% of a nano niche? Or 100% of the, you know, computer operating systems? And I think this is generally true however you define this market share.
It just changes what that absolute number
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is $10, maybe this is $10,000, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Jack Welch, president of GE, had this policy that every year his managers had to get rid of 10% of the employees. Okay? Now that sounds so cruel, right? You know, like, that really grates against a lot of people. I'll tell you, that keeps the riffraff cleaned out. Because just about guarantee you, if there's a company with 10 people, there is one of them that needs to go. It's almost inevitable. How many of you have 10 employees or more? Does anybody like really disagree with me who has 10 employees? One of them's going to find their way in somehow, and you're going to have to somehow get rid of them. Now, the presumption in most businesses, in American business, is that most people can do anything. After all, they went to high school and they were learning how to do anything. Okay? And so you just hire anybody and teach them anything. But if it's not true that anybody can do anything, if what's true is most people can do a small number of things really well, and in a room full of people, it's a different list of things for every person, then you shouldn't be doing most jobs, and there's a few jobs you should be doing, and you shouldn't be doing most jobs, and there's a few jobs you should be doing, and you should spend your money on starting with a large population of job applicants and narrowing them down and narrowing them down and narrowing them down until you know that you've got the people that can do what you want them to do. Okay? And that way you don't have to fire nearly as many. So spend a lot more time hiring and a lot less time firing. If you know you got to get rid of them, just get rid of them. Now I can say that because many companies have gotten rid of me. So I have earned the right to say that. I mean, I was a misfit. And seriously, I mean, for years I was like, you know, I just can't like find a job that seems to like be the right place for me. Like everywhere I go, Perry's just this kind of odd guy, and he marches to this odd drum, and I don't really know what he's up to, but he doesn't fit in. It's like, we're all misfits. That's why you're here. Like, you didn't fit in anywhere else. It's like, I'm going to get on a plane, I'm going to fly from Brisbane, Australia to Chicago to a place where I fit. Well, here you are. Welcome.
Are you
Oh.
going to read a bit?
Yeah.
Can I grab the microphone and read a bit about
Yeah.
employees?
I'll be right back.
Employees who excel. Ha! Perry needed a bathroom break. This was well timed. How many of you have read any of this series of books? First, Break All the Rules. Now, Discover Your Strengths. Yeah. Go Put Your Strengths to Work. The first book. Yeah, that's on. The first book in the series, First Break All the Rules. The whole lesson of the book is the managers who excel do so because they follow the 80-20 rule. And the managers who fail don't. And so here's, since we're talking about employees and hiring employees, here's an odd little bit about hiring people for data entry, and contrast what this person did with the idea of averages. It says, for data entry roles, the national performance average is 380,000 key punches per month, or 19,000 per day. Many companies use an average performance measure like this to determine how many data entry employees they need to hire. And upon hiring these data entry folk, a good manager should probably be able to raise his employees' performance higher than this national average. How much higher? Using this average as your measure, what should a good manager's goal be? 25%, 30%, 35%, 50%? 50% higher would put you over 500,000 key punches per month. In fact, the top performing data entry employees make a mockery of the national average. They outperform it almost tenfold. Jean P. is one such employee. When she was first measured, she averaged 560,000 punches per month, already 50% above the national average. She was recognized for her performance, then she and her manager set out some individual goals that could help her improve and track her performance. 3 months later, she hit 1 million key punches. A couple of weeks after that milestone, Jean checked her total at the end of the day and saw that she had managed 112,000 key punches in one day. She approached her manager and said, you know what, if I average over 110,000 for the whole month, then I'll hit the 2 million mark. They put a plan together, and 6 months later, she soared past 2 million. You know, one of the principles they talk about in here is that the best managers, rather than spending most of their time with their most troubled employees, the best managers spend most of their time with their best employees. And so that's what this manager did. Jean, he goes on, became a model for her role. Her manager spent time watching her, asking her why she loved her work so much. She answered, I'm really competitive. I love counting. He asked her why she seemed to make fewer mistakes the more keys she punched. Her answer, I just have more practice. He designed a talent profile to find more like her and a compensation plan to reward her excellence. Today, Jean's personal best is 3,526,000 key punches in a month, and the average of all the data entry employees working around her is over 1 million. The lessons from Jean's story are applicable to almost any role. Do not use average to estimate the limits of excellence. You will dramatically underestimate what is possible. Focus on your best performers. Keep pushing them toward the right-hand edge of the bell curve. It is counterintuitive, but top performers like Jean have the most potential for growth.
Right on, baby. How many of you came to the seminar because you wanted to know why I said it was impossible for Hillary Clinton to win the election? Nobody's raising their hand. Now, I am told. Well, let me explain something first. I am at this point in time very disinterested in the election. I don't really follow it, and you know, it's like what I get is what I see on a TV monitor at the airport or something like that, and so I'm like way back distant from it. And in the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, where like I was telling you about the statue thing and the museum curators, and the museum curators sort of, they knew that the statues were fake and they didn't know why, and they turned out to be fake after all. he uses this term called thin slicing, which is, you walk into a situation, you meet somebody, and you learn just a handful of little facts, and you form an impression, and then you act on that impression, and you don't have like any access to the machinery that took in all that information and what all you actually knew, and gave you that impulse that says, no, I don't think I'm going to be friends with that person, or yeah, I think we're going to work together, whatever. Thin slicing can only be done in these, kind of, brushes, in like brushes of reality. If there's too much exposure and too much time to talk and too much time to analyze, the thin slicing kind of breaks down, and now you're just doing rational analysis, okay? Well, so I haven't been involved in the rational analysis of the election, but I'm sitting in the Atlanta airport and I'm watching this Clinton-Obama thing, and I can't even hear the sound, but I'm just watching it, and so there's McCain, and there's Obama, and there's Hillary, and now I have this theory. Why did it was a couple of elections ago, it was Bush against John Kerry, right? Isn't that right? You can tell how much attention I pay to this stuff, right? I'm like, yeah, that's right, John Kerry, that's it, that's the guy. I have an opinion why John Kerry didn't win the election. He did not look like, walk like, talk like, sound like a president. He looked like, walked like, talked like, sounded like a guy who plays president on TV. That's why he lost. Like, that's all you need to know. Okay, I mean, you could go into this big, long analysis about whatever you want to analyze, but really, people looked at him and they go, I don't think that guy's a president. Okay? Now, when I look at McCain, I see a guy that looks like a vice president, not a president. That's the end of my analysis. That's all I have to say about the guy. Okay? Now, what about Hillary? Hillary, to most men, looks like somebody that if they didn't divorce, they should have. She's shrill. She's defiant. She's insecure. She doesn't look like, walk like, talk like, sound like, think like a president at all. I say she ain't got a prayer. Now, maybe like between whenever I said that and now, she already doesn't have a prayer. I mean, that's what people are telling me. Like, her goose is already cooked. Well, I said this months ago. She doesn't have a chance. There's no way most Americans are going to vote for her. Now, she has been extremely useful to the Republicans because they have raised because she's a devil, and they have raised all kinds of money, just raising money against the possibility that Hillary Clinton could run in 2008. They were raising money based on that like 8 years ago. Okay? We have to raise money now to prevent Hillary from ever having a chance at the presidency. Because if she gets, it's over. Okay? Okay, now how about Obama? Now, notice I have not talked about any of these people's real qualifications or anything, and none of them are qualified. They're all thieves, and that's all I have to say about that. Okay? But Obama, yeah, he's black, but you know what? In my opinion, he looks like, walks like, talks like, sounds like a president, and his wife looks like, walks like, talks like another Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis celebrity first lady. And I think he'll win for reasons as simple as that. Now, these are like National Enquirer simple explanations. That's because it's going to be mostly National Enquirer readers who decide the election of whether they like the guy's haircut or Hillary's shoes. Okay? Thin slicing. I mean, you can analyze the thing to death, but it's going to be like really simple first impressions that carry it over, okay? And I think that's an 80-20 thing. That's a tiny little bit of information that like tells a whole story. You know, is Bill Clinton really glad that he married her? Nobody's really too sure. So, you know, do they want to marry her for the next 4 years? If you back up a page 27, I got to say something about the jet stream. The jet stream is a phenomenon in Google on the content network. It's my name for it. And the jet stream is that some ads are so effective, they get shown almost anywhere. And they'll make money generating clicks for Google and for the owner of the website that's running the AdSense ads. Okay? And there's like, out of all the thousands and thousands and thousands of Google ads, there's a few dozen or maybe a few hundred that seem to work almost anywhere. Okay? And what Google's system does, Google's system it'll start on a narrow topic, like if the ads are about goldfish, then it'll start showing them on goldfish sites, but if they work really well on the goldfish sites, they might try it on the guppy sites, and they might try it on the betta sites, and they might try it on some other pet sites, and if they keep working, the circle of sites that they get shown on will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it will continue to expand until it stops working. And there are certain ads that work on almost any site. Okay? And I'm just gonna show you a few. I'm at the bottom of page 26. Because I study these ads and I collect them. And by the way, the place to study these ads is in a Gmail account. If you use a Gmail account, you'll see they'll flash ads at you all the time, and there's certain ads that you'll see over and over and over again. Well, that means the advertisers are willing to pay the money, and they're getting good click-through rates, so you can study the ads and go, what's the magic of this ad? So like this one, prepare to be shocked. You may be younger than you think. Take the real age test and find out. www.realage.com. That ad has been showing all over the place for a couple years. Now, isn't that ad suspiciously similar to some of the things you like see on women's magazines? Couldn't you imagine seeing that same copy on the cover of a women's magazine that says, prepare to be shocked, you may be younger than you think, take the real age test on, inside, right? What type of mom you are? www.areyouaslackermom.com. 15 fun question that will tell you what type of parent you are. Now, something that I notice about most Jetstream ads is they are very, very, very much about the reader. Hey, what about you? Or how about this one? Do you understand men? Learn the secret reason why you're attracted to jerks and players. Now, this one's a study on multiple levels, okay? Now, I went and I studied this website, and I was actually a little bit impressed. Because I've had, like really, in the last year or so, I've had really interesting conversations with various women about the abusive relationships they were in. And the reason that they're attractive to abusive men is they were abused. And that's like what they've learned. That's what feels normal to them. Now, that's sort of a law of attraction thing. Now, there's all kinds of people. Let's look at it like this, that here's the women and here's the men, okay? And this is the abuse scale, okay? These ones will be attracted to these ones. These ones will be attracted to these ones. had a conversation with a guy not too long ago, and the conversation was, I get this friend, she's here, I'm like here, I wish I could save her. Don't. You can't. You cannot get her to come here. She has to come here herself. Okay? Now, there's like all kinds of, there's a whole industry which I call the speed seduction industry. Okay? And the speed seduction industry is books, courses, videos on like how to get laid really fast. There's one guy named Ross Jeffries, and his USP is, and his guarantee is, you don't get laid, I don't get paid. So you like buy my stuff, use my stuff. If it doesn't work, send it back for refund. Okay? And this is actually fairly sizable industry. There's a whole book by Neil Strauss called The Game that's about this topic. Now, I was talking to one of my friends who's like into this stuff, and he goes, "No, Perry, I mean you should read this. This would work on your wife." And I'm like, "No, it wouldn't." It's like, he's like, "But you don't even know what's in it." I go, I know what's in it, but I know it wouldn't work. See, what is being taught is these people are being taught how to find these people, because these people are scheming and these people are gullible. Their thin slicing doesn't work right. Usually because their relationship with men has been screwed up like since childhood. They don't like have an imprint of what a healthy man is actually like. They don't know how to find one. I had a conversation with a friend, and she was talking about like working through all of her different issues that had happened over a period of years, and there was like this one guy that she almost married, but then she didn't. And then she married like a good guy. She's like, and I got a good one. Like, he's good. And like, boy, I almost could have married this guy. And like, she knows like what's happened in his life since. What you're going to find out is, you know, half your buyers are like old ladies who are spending their Social Security check on, you know, some like fantasy of getting rich, and they're maybe not even coherent. And that might be who all your customers are. And this particular guy has had, he has been hassled by the feds about certain things, and it's not all, you know, totally rosy, but it's like people attract like people, okay? And it's really interesting because if you go to different seminars, I mean, Ralph goes to a lot of seminars and he does this photography thing. Every seminar has a different personality of who's in the crowd. And it's usually some kind of reflection of who the speakers are. I mean, it's like really, I remember doing my first seminar, I'm like, what are they all going to look like? I've never met them. And here they all come. Well, there they are. A whole bunch of sort of kind of reflections of you. And somebody, yeah, and see how dysfunctional we all are. I mean, this is really encouraging. But somebody, but there was a few things that I noticed. I noticed that in most seminars, there's usually like a whole little entourage of people in the hallway that are chattering and talking and discussing. And at my seminar, nobody was in the hallway. They were all in there taking notes. Somebody else says to me, I've never met so many engineers at a seminar. Well, that's a big surprise. You know, Perry the engineer, okay. You know, it's like, I'm going to teach you guys a calculus formula. And they fly around the world to go, you know, learn a calculus formula. Okay? Now, look, if I can get people to fly around the world to learn a calculus formula, by the way, like, is it cool? Okay, it's very cool. Okay, good. No, I didn't. I gotta like, I gotta go through some due diligence before I figure out about whether or not to do that. But anyway, okay, as eccentric as I am, I mean, I went like 30 years not even be able to find a job where I fit in. Okay, if I can be as eccentric as I am, you can be as eccentric as you are, and it's okay. Like the internet is where the geeks and freaks and misfits hang out, and they find each other, okay? Like normal people don't come here. We're all abnormal. We're all like off the charts on some weird scale, and it's perfectly okay. Yes, yes, Ralph.
You want to prove that point, I will give... If you want to prove that point, I'll give everybody the link that I have for the photos from Frank Kern's Mass Control. I shot the photos at it, and I did a special little farewell video on it. So if you want a good laugh, this totally proves Perry's point.
Right.
Go to insearchofheroes.com, and then is_Frank_Kern_ insane.htm.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
No, I haven't seen it. You know, just a second, Brian. The first seminar I ever spoke at was Matt Fury's. Oh. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know why. Go ahead. First seminar I go to speak at is Matt Fury's, and Matt has a shaved head. And I noticed there's like 25 or 30 people at the seminar, and like about, I think, 5 or 6 or 7 of them were guys with shaved heads. They're like little Matt Furies. And at one point, this was so hilarious. I mean, it's like, dang, if this isn't like a study in human behavior. He gets one of them, and he says, "Come here." And like Matt is alpha male, and he's like a pro wrestler, and he's mean and all, and he says, "Come here." And the guy says, "Okay," and he like does some arm twisting thing, and he like the guy goes, twisting in pain, and he rolls on the floor, and now Matt's got him on the floor. He's got his like foot on his chest or something like that, and Matt says, "Okay, now I want you guys to all know something. Is you're working for the man, and the man's boot is on your neck," and he's got like his foot on the guy's neck. And he goes, "Now let me tell you what. You have come to this seminar so you can get out. And let me tell you how you're going to get out. I'm going to have a bunch of speakers coming across this stage, and they're going to show you the tools that are going to get you free. And the way you're going to get free is you're going to buy all this shit that these guys show you. And you're going to take it home. And you're going to learn it. You got it? You get up now." It's like, this is what happened at Matt Fury's seminar. Okay? And so now, like, I'm sure, I mean, this is like 5 years ago, I'm sure by now, quite a few of those bald-headed guys are doing their own seminars, and they've got like guys on the floor, and they got their foot on their neck, and they're like buying $8,000 of stuff before they leave, and then $8,000 more stuff before they leave.
They buy a lot of your shit?
I sold some shit, I sold a little bit. I sold a little bit of shit. I was like, this is such a personality mismatch. I mean, I'm showing these bald-headed guys Google AdWords, and they want to like wrestle somebody to the ground. I'm like, see that click-through rate? It's like 6% higher than the other one. Isn't that amazing? I'm sure, Matt's going to get this, video, or he's going to hear about it. I hope he doesn't come and kick my ass. Did you ever see the eBay auction that said, "I will kick your ass"? There was this, you could type it into Google, and it was like, minimum auction, $200, and it said, "I will kick your ass." And it said, for a minimum bid of $200, I will come to your home, and I will kick your ass. and I will throw you down the stairs, and I will kick your teeth in, and I will show you what a real man. I will pound the shit out of you. I will kick your ass. So bid now, and and like people started bidding on it, and then eBay shut it down, and like some people saved it before it disappeared. And and it now lives forever on the internet. This guy will come and kick your ass for $200. It's like, so, hey, there's room in the world for abusers. There's like people that like to be abused. They'll pay money for it. Hey. Okay, a couple things. We got about 25 minutes to go. You guys all got order forms, and I want to mention a few things. I'm not going to kick anybody's ass over this, but there's 3 opportunities I want you to be aware of. First of all, roundtable. Okay, we have 4-man intensives that lead into roundtable. So you come to my house for 2 days. We work on your stuff very intensively. Then you go into roundtable. The next 4-man intensive is May 27 and 28, and June 4 and 5. And then roundtable is in the middle of June. Okay, and it's right here at the Entourage. And if you're interested in roundtable, it's $1,200 a month. Ask Denise for a form, and you can fill it in. Okay, Gladiator Club. We're going to do summer session on advanced 80/20 topics and show you how to apply it in your business, specific niche to you. Gladiator Club, $774 a month, and you can. And all you have to do is let us know that you went in. You'll be able to come to the autoresponder seminar September 27 and 28, and ongoing Gladiator Club meetings. Then a couple other things. We have videos of these events available for $5.95, and all you got to do is fill out the form and turn it in. Your card will not be charged until the videos are shipped. They'll probably be available in a month or 2, and we'll also be sending a CD that has everything on MP3, so you can load it into your MP3 player. You can listen to it if you don't want to, sit there and watch it on a screen. Let's see. Couple other things. Oh, I got to say something about industries that will hugely profit if Hillary gets elected, or if Obama gets elected, for example, which is any industries that rely on a liberal devil to raise money, like the NRA. Okay? NRA is always going to do better with a Democrat in office than a Republican. Okay? Or like I got this client and they do this certain kind of employment law litigation. And they're like, well, we're definitely want the Republicans to win, but if the Democrats win, our business will go way up. So, well, I'm not sure what we really want, Okay? Because the laws will change if the Democrats are in office, and they cater to conservative customers, and so they have to defend the conservative customers against the liberal laws, and their business will improve. Okay? So, who's your devil? Who could be a devil? There's somebody who could be a devil for you. Maybe the devil is a competitor. Maybe the devil is some other version of your industry. I talked about this equality in Tocqueville thing already. What I'm going to do, I want to open it up for questions. We got a good 20 minutes here, and pass the microphone. And while people are raising their hands, somebody asked me an interesting question before lunch. He said, I've got this double opt-in autoresponder thing, and only half the people are double opting in. And he said, is that a good idea? Should I just go to single opt-in? Well, the simple answer is, unless your delivery rate is like less than 50%, you're better off with just single opt-in than double opt-in, because you're losing half of these people anyway. And my answer is, you should do single opt-in and then find ways to get people to double opt-in later. And the ones who double opt-in will be the ones who are listening to you, and you can have multiple opportunities for them to do that, and those will be your 20%. So, okay, who's got a question about anything?
You know, Mickey had a really good story about dog owners who are willing to pay large. Was it the dog thing or the cat thing? Or why don't you talk about that and how it raised money?
Yeah. Okay. I had an interesting client. It's actually my most successful customer. They initially launched under the company name Alerca, and they came out with a hypoallergenic cat for allergy sufferers. I think it sold for around $35,000 approximately. And they were picked up everywhere. And mostly it was debating the issue of whether, genetically engineering a cat is responsible or not, blah, blah, blah. And you had to put in a pre-order for this cat that would not be made for a couple of years, and it was like a deposit of $10,000. And the interesting thing on the back end was that the company was doing, I guess, biomedical research for animals and cats, and creating vaccines and stuff like that. And if you have a cat or dog that's being vaccinated now, there are antigens that they've created that are in every shot now that didn't exist a couple years ago, and your animal's protected. And they were using that money from the animals to fund the research, which I think is really cool. Well, as soon as all the bad press came out, their sales went through the roof as a result of it. But they got really scared, and they separated the company and created two different names. There's, it's now Lifestyle Pets is the name of the pet company, and on the other side is the research company and the laboratory company. And I think it's kind of unfortunate, because I think that there's, it's actually a cool story. Yeah, there's people willing to pay, god-awful amount of money for an animal for whatever reason, but a lot of that money is going in to fund the research, and they're not really taking advantage of that story. They're actually isolated now as two separate companies, and I'm probably one of the few people that knows that it's actually the same company. But I guess they're just worried that the negative press over genetically engineering animals and stuff like that will just muddy all of the good stuff in research that they're doing. And I just said, it's sort of one of those situations where, it's difficult to determine what the best answer is. But, I kind of think that they're missing an opportunity.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, people will pay huge amounts of money for pets. So.
Perry, with thin slicing, how do you avoid sample bias?
I'm sorry?
Thin slicing, how do you avoid sample bias? I mean, you got to really know what you're doing, don't you?
Thin slicing? Thin slicing is just something that people do. And yeah, it's got it's not, the whole point of Gladwell's thin slicing things is it defies analysis. But it ends up being right anyway.
And sometimes very wrong.
And sometimes certainly. Sometimes you completely misjudge people. But more often than not, you actually judge them correctly. That's why stereotypes are so powerful, because they tend to be true. As much as we hate to admit it, there's all kinds of stereotypes, And so, Gladwell's whole point is, there's some kind of fabulous machinery inside your brain that figures out all kinds of amazing stuff and comes to a conclusion very rapidly, and you can't even study how it is that happened. It's just that it did, and that you're more justified in trusting your first impressions than a lot of people think, especially people who like to analyze everything to death. Yes, sir.
Okay, as a question from an engineer, a key question.
Yeah.
Will you have a kind of a manual or something for the school code?
Yeah, I need to make one, and I don't have one. I had my programmers do another, wave of it, like another revision of it in the last couple months. Yes, I will get you all like a manual examples and how to use it. Now, I've kind of gauged how much I talk about that tool based on the questions that I've been asked here. If a whole bunch of people were saying, hey, you know, explain to me all about that and everything, then I would have done that. I'm not getting the idea. It's like most people want the concept. And for me, the concept and just having the picture in my mind, okay, there's like all these people over here, and then there's this very narrow spike of stuff over here, that's good enough most of the time. But yes, I will give you guys a manual, and we'll take care of that. Good question. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, we were playing with the tool last night,
Yes.
and we thought it was super cool. But we were starting to wonder when we were looking at it what the minimum population size you kind of need in order to have a somewhat accurate picture. I mean, is a sample of 50 going to give you good data, or do you really need 500
Oh.
or 1,000, or at what point
Okay.
do you start losing credibility?
Oh, well, let's talk about that. Let's take an example. Okay, let's.
Can I give a generic answer
Yeah,
to that?
there you
And he's going to give you a specific answer because you're asking a statistical question. Her question was, how big of a sample do you need to actually know that the numbers you're getting from the skew curve generator thing is going to be correct, if I understand the question? And that's a really good question. I just wanted to make the comment, and I hope this isn't redundant, that the fact that there will be a skew curve in the first place will be evident by the time you have 10 customers. Okay?
Right.
And now that's not the answer to your question yet, but just be aware of it, you know. And I was sharing on a call recently that by the time I had sold 6 or 7 ebooks of my Learn Chinese thing, I had already found the one guy who was like almost my, what do you call him, the zero man, who completely fallen in love with me and would crawl buck naked across broken glass to help me promote this to other people who are living in China. And literally,
He's the rabid guy. He was looking,
He was-
and he found Brian almost right
he was
away.
the rabid guy, and he was about the 4th guy that I sold an ebook to. And so that happened. So now to answer your question.
Yeah, okay, so let's say, like I think for a lot of people in this room, a really typical example of this is going to be, okay, let's say that you have a $50 product and you're going to buy some clicks on Google and you're going to sell the product and you're going to go, okay, based on selling this product, how big is this market and all of that? Well, first of all, the statistics about selling the product is as simple as knowing, okay, is the response rate on the purchases actually statistically reliable? Like, is it going to go up and down and up and down? And if you average it out, well, probably, I'm going to say, 20, 30, 40 purchases, you've probably already established a reliable conversion rate to at least like 1 decimal of precision. Okay? Now, it'd be nice if you get up to 100. I mean, it'd tell you more, but all that's going to happen is, if your real conversion rate is this, the variability is just going to start, zeroing out, okay? So, like, just off the cuff, I think this is probably enough at whatever price point. And now the question is, how long is it going to take before you have how many? Like, before your whole range is this 100, or is it 1,000 people in your database, or do you have 10,000 people in your database, and it's really it's the size of your customer list that determines how many of these steps that you can put in there. Now, something that I forgot to mention that you guys can go try and see if you agree with me, there's something very interesting that happens is you go, okay, I sold 20 copies of a $50 product, so here we are, okay? Now, an interesting thing that I've seen, or at least that I think I see from a limited amount of data, is if, let's say, this dotted line, like these are the purchases, okay? Now let's say this dotted line is the opt-ins, okay? Well, this number that you get, you know, so many dollars here, these people didn't actually spend money, but this tells you the value of an opt-in. And if you go this way, here's clicks. So like you got 100 clicks and 20 of them opted in. So we're over here at 100 clicks. In a competitive market with lots of players and everybody duking it out, you will tend to find that this number is roughly similar to the cost per click. Because in advertising, the cost of advertising tends to rise to the point where everybody's breaking even acquiring a new customer. Because all advertising is really a bidding situation, whether it's explicitly bid or not. Like, the reason In Tech Magazine is $10,000 a page is because that's what people will pay. Okay? And the reason some Google clicks are 50 cents and some are $5 is that's what people are willing to pay. So in a competitive market where there's lots of players, this is going to tend to be it. And so you have one product, you're actually probably going to lose money. You start making money when you have other things, other choices, back end, whatever, and this is where the actual money is made, which I've been telling you all weekend. So that's an interesting little thing that falls out of this. Okay, yes, sir.
On the opt-in line that you've drawn there.
Yeah.
How did you determine where that should go? I mean, how do you determine the position on the x-axis for that?
It's some number.
Oh no, but I mean, what
Okay,
I'm saying
20
is if you're actually using the tool, right? And I've got sales charted out over there, right? Because I mean, presumably that's where the value has to,
Right.
the value part has to come from.
Right.
So but isn't that population? If that population on the x-axis is the size of my list, and how does that? I'm not understanding where that opt-in number comes from.
Well, this is the size of your opt-in list. This is the size of your customer list.
Right.
This is your
but what's
customer
the
list.
so what's the entire x-axis then?
This is visitors to your website.
Okay.
Which you got this number from maybe your Google account.
Gotcha.
Right.
I was confused because I was thinking in terms of
Yeah.
the list as being the entire x-axis. So.
Yeah.
So the x-axis is increasing.
So the x-axis is decreasing in value?
The further you go this direction, the less valuable the people are, because we're lining. These are the most valuable people here. You know, this is customer 0, who will spend $1 million, right?
Right.
And then the farther out you get, the less value the customers are.
But what I'm saying is, as you move to the right, the absolute value of the x-axis is decreasing because you have to have more clicks than you do opt-ins, more opt-ins than you have. I don't understand what your scale is on your x-axis.
The scale, well, this could go out to the whole population of the world if you wanted.
So your x-axis is decreasing as you move to the right.
Well, yeah, this is 0. As you go to the left, the number, okay, here's 20, and here's 50, and here's 100.
You answered it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, and if you go to the tool, it says Geek version. Geek version is the original version that I made, and it counts upwards. And I found that this was totally counterintuitive to people, because what really made sense was to count up from customer number 1, customer number 2, customer number 3, customer number 1,000. That made a whole lot more and like your total list. Okay, I got 10,000 people on my customer list, so yeah. Five minutes to go. Yes, sir. An industrial programming guide.
Yeah, but I'm going to quote an example from an extremely
You need to talk a lot louder so everybody can hear you. Sorry.
Just as a confirming data point, I know a gentleman with a very large membership website who has observed over a number of years that he has a tip of the week for his signups, and out of those opt-ins, 24% eventually wind up becoming members in his membership site. And that's a very large sample size, and his number remains constant from year to year.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so he's designed his funnel with the right amount of resistance to go from, one step to the next, because then if you get about 25% of those people to take a next step, then that's a properly sized next step, and then if you get 25% of them, and you can just keep moving up, and you can have all these businesses that are the same size. Are your brains full? Yeah. All right. Well, I tell you, I remember when I was in Amway Ambot, which I proudly admit, I actually talk about that stuff a lot. Drinking the pink Kool-Aid, and they saw me coming a mile away and all that kind of stuff. Now, see, that was a deal where the idea was to keep people around buying tapes as long as possible, despite the fact that they were doing nothing. Like I thought it was all about doing something. No, actually, it doesn't matter if anybody's doing anything. It matters if they buy tapes, But, I remember this tape, and this lady was saying, she was saying, success didn't happen overnight. It was like one day I noticed that, gee, when I went to the grocery store, I didn't have to, have my little calculator and, make sure that, that I didn't go over some budget, and things kind of loosened up a little bit. And then I noticed that, well, we don't really worry about this, and things loosened up, and then she gets to a point where they're, doing anything they want to do. And what I find interesting is that, for some people, it's kind of this gradual thing, and they just sort of slowly get out of the woods, and things just improve and improve and improve. And other times there are quantum leaps. And there's some opportunity, and it shows up, and you jump on it, and you seize it, and it's like kaboom. Now, it's worth mentioning that if you look at the Forbes 400 list, who's in the top 10? Well, Warren Buffett is. And relatively speaking, that's like old money, traditional money kind of stuff. Then Bill Gates, and that's starting to get old money. It's like a 30-year-old fortune. And Walmart's, 40-year-old fortune or something like that. And then, the Google guys, they're in the top 10. And, their company is only 10 years old. And then I remember, years ago, McDonald's was the fastest company to get to $1 billion, and it only took them 20 years. Well, the world is accelerating and accelerating and accelerating and accelerating. And I think one of the most important things keep in mind is like, okay, you know, you've lived inside your own skin for a long time, and you're used to things being a certain way, and it's easy to forget how fast the world accelerates. And it's easy to forget like how fast you could go from chump to champ just because one thing, the properly chosen thing, you know, takes off and goes in a big direction. You know, like Mario here has a hotel in Oklahoma City, and this is like a dilapidated mess 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, okay? And, you know, and the thing is like on this rocket ship ride where the numbers are increasing every month, and he's just gotten to the point where, like, the occupancy rates have sort of gone past a critical mass, and the thing is gathering momentum. Now, I don't know exactly what his plans are, but I could easily see him, you know, getting this thing kind of perfected within a year or so, and then being able to go to another city and another city and another city and just ramp this thing up. And pretty soon he's got millions and millions of dollars of hotels, and you know, and his friends are like, wow, you know, another overnight success. And he's like, yeah, another overnight success that actually took me 20 years of blood, sweat, and tears and everything else. And so, hey, you know, if people think you're an overnight success, then you could just smile and say, yeah, it's great. And then you know the real truth, that, you know, you struggled and you fought, and, you know, you did all the things that people got to do. And it's, I think one of the coolest things about what I do is being able to watch people, you know, rocket past what, you know, they really thought they could do or what their parents thought they could do. I had this guy in Roundtable for a while who, he was an Indian guy who was like doing the affiliate marketing thing where like he was in the jet stream and he was making a ton of money and doing really well. And his parents are like, Amit, why don't you become a doctor? It's like, oh, why would I want to be a doctor? I'm like, I work 10 hours a week and chase my wife around the house. Like, why would I want to go do that? It's like, you know, your parents don't have to understand you. And, you know, you can pay them back for all the student loans for MIT. It's okay. So anyway, I want to thank you all for coming here. It's been great to have you, and we'll be talking to you on coaching calls and all that kind of stuff. Thanks very much for coming.